the first thing on here is a concept called the zero product property. The zero product property we talked about yesterday. That's saying if I have two things, it can be more than two things. If we have a product and that equals 0, that means that either the first one equals 0 or the second one equals 0. It could be either. So we had an example, and this is not the one we had up yesterday, but just putting some numbers in there. If I have a product where x plus 4 times x minus 2 equals 0, that's telling me that either x plus 4 equals 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. So then I could find what x would equal from there. Because if x plus 4 equals 0, then the whole thing is going to equal 0. We did that yesterday. Or if x minus 2 equals 0, the whole thing equals 0. So we're going to learn two things today. We're going to first learn how to solve an equation by factoring. You see this equation, x squared minus 4x equals 45. In order to solve it by factoring, it has to equal 0 first. So before you can start factoring anything, the first thing we have to do is set the equation equal to 0. Set equation equal to 0. Okay, so how can we make x squared minus 4x equals 45 equal to 0? Jacob. Subtract 45 from both sides. Third one down. You don't have to graph anything, but if you want to, there's graph. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2, factor the expression. I'm saying the words expression because I'm only talking about the x squared minus 4x minus 45. I'm not talking about the whole equation, just talking about the part that has x's in it. So we're going to factor that now. So it's a trinomial. Is there a GCF? Okay. First step of factoring always, is there a GCF? That's the first step of factoring, just reminding you that. There is not one, so we can go ahead and skip that step. And because it's a trinomial, do you remember what our method is called? Do you know what our method is called? Just curious vocab here. Does anybody know what our method is called for doing what I'm about to do? After you find everything and you put stuff in those parentheses, what do you have to do? What, Ryan? That's not part of the name of it, but yeah, I have to distribute. Why would I be distributing? Because I'm trying to do what to the equation? Check it. It's called guess and check. All right, so we know that it has to start with an x. What do we know about the signs? There's got to be one of each. Plus, minus, that's the only way we're getting a negative 45. So then we go through. 45 could be 1 and 45. It could be 3 and 15. It could be 5 and 9. Anybody want to guess? 5 and 9. Okay. So if I put a 5 here and I put a 9 here, I got to check it. So x squared minus 9x plus 5x minus 45. Does the middle equal negative 4? Yes. Okay. And we've done it correctly. That's step 2. Step 3, set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So x plus 5 equals 0, x minus 9 equals 0. Have we seen that before? Has anybody else seen it before?
Yes.
Gavin, do you remember where you saw it before?
I don't remember what it's called, but I remember we did how we did it.
You remember doing it?
Yeah. We did it when we were graphing it.
We did it when we were graphing it. Does anybody remember what were we trying to find? Yancy, do you remember? It was the x-intercepts. That's what we were trying to do. And yesterday in our notes, we talked about how like the solutions is what we get when we're solving. But when it's on a graph, it's x-intercepts. And look at that. It's like the same thing. They're the same answers because they are really, really, really kind of the same thing. Okay? I don't remember which window I was using though. There we go. So we solve each of these and we get x equals -5 and x equals +9. And then step 4 would be to have your solution. So my step 4 would be x equals -5, +9. Fancy brackets mean that both of them are an answer to the same question. I put them in order from least to greatest. Questions? So the next, not the one next to it, not the B, but below, there's 2 student practice questions. It says solve the equation by factoring. So I'm going to get you started, but I want you to do the factoring part. So number 7, what is the first step that we have to do? What did I write that step 1 is, Jack? No. What did I write above that step 1 is? Grace, set the equation equal to 0. Okay. Do I need to do that? That's already done. All right. That one's done. Step 2, Jackson? We're going to factor it. Now, so Jack, what is my first step of factoring? Right. So now we're going to actually factor the expression. You take a moment and do that. Oops. Sorry, I leaned on the thing. Celia, did you get it? Nathan, did you get it? What'd you get?
X plus 5, x plus 7.
Okay, he had x plus 5, x plus 7. Would it matter if he had x plus 7, x plus 5? No, those are the same answer. And what are we going to do now? Hannah, do you know what to do now?
No.
Okay, look at, did you write the directions down from before?
Are we gonna check it?
Oh, yeah. Wait, factor and check it. Okay, it checks. Do you know what to do after that?
We set each of the variables equal to 0.
Factors, yes. Each factor equal to 0. So we're going to do x plus 5 equals 0, x plus 7 equals 0. And then we solve each of those. Subtract 5, subtract 7. When I'm done, I should have the 2 solutions for x. Remember, I just put -7 first. Why? Least to greatest, yeah. And even though the 7 looks bigger, it's more negative, so it's least. Okay, so same stuff, question 8. What's our first step? Does it equal 0? Oh gosh, we better do it then. Maddie, what should I do to get it equal to 0? No. Figure it out. I need to say equals 0. Right now it says equals 2. How can I make it say equals 0 and not equals 2? Divide by 2 would give me 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. How do I get rid of 2 completely and make it say 0 there? 1/2 times 2 is 1. How do I make it nothing? If I want this seat empty, Cavell's in it right now. If I want that seat empty, what do I need to do with Cavell? What's she saying? I don't know what she's saying. I have to like take them away, right? What operation is that? Subtraction. So what do I need to do? Subtract 2 from both sides. Subtraction is what will give you equals 0. Dividing gives you a 1. All right, next step. Factor it. Okay, take a moment, factor it. Did you just notice that?
I didn't think it was real.
Yeah, it's for real. That's what it was called, for real. All right, if I were to walk around this room right now, which I'm not going to walk around until the last 2 examples, if I were to walk around this room right now, I would see 2 parentheses on your paper. Would I see some signs or not yet? Maybe. What's the first spot? Oh, I don't mean the sign, sorry. 3x and x. It has to be 3x and x. The second one has to be a 2 and a 1. So I actually did not put the signs in there first because I don't know which sign needs to go with what, but I know it has to be a 2 and a 1. Okay? Does anybody know what the answer should be? 3x what? Plus 1 and then minus 2. So we're just going to check that real fast. 3x squared. Then we've got minus 6x. So we've got plus 1x minus 2. That looks like it checks good. Okay, so then we set each factor, 3x plus 1 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. We're going to solve each factor. This first factor, you have to take away 1 and then divide by 3. So I get negative 1/3 for an answer. And then the other one's just 2. Okay. We're good on solving by factoring. We already know how to factor. So now we just have to go 1 step past that factoring and set them equal to 0, which we've already done when we're doing x-intercepts. All right, the second example up here says find the zeros. Find the zeros. That was on that group of worksheets that I had in the notes yesterday too. We talked about intercepts. We talked about equations have solutions. We talked about expressions have roots. And then we talked about functions have zeros. So that's what we're doing now. There's a function that has zeros. If you look at it really carefully, if you look at this, the way that we looked at all the other ones, all of these had the exact same answer, 2 and negative 1. And if this one's in factored form, you can see it's in factored form. if I plug in a 2, 2 minus 2 is 0, it's going to make everything equal to 0. So when you're asked to find zeros, that's what you're asked to find. What makes this function have a value of 0? So what I'm trying to do is make this side equal 0. So once I take out the f of x and replace it with 0, we're just going to solve it. I just taught you how to solve by factoring. You want to try it that way? Let's try it that way. Thanks for everybody agreeing. I know it has to be a 2x and an x. I know the signs have to be what? The signs both minus. Because the positive 12 tells me both signs have to be subtraction. For 12, it gives me options of 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And now we kind of like start guessing and putting things in there. You think it's 1 and 12? I heard yes. Well, that's going to give me 24. I don't think it's 1 and 12. Could it be 12 and 1? That's going to give me 2x minus 12x, not getting 11 from that. So it's not 12 and 1. 3 and 4? That's going to give me a minus 8x and a minus 3x. So that works. That's negative 11. Okay. So we factored it correctly. I checked it. So now we set each factor equal to 0. And we'll solve each factor. The one on the right is just x equals 4. That one's easier to solve. 2x, I have to add 3 and then divide by 2. And I get an answer of 3/2. So in words, you could write the zeros are 3/2 and 4. If you want to write symbols, I usually just write x equals 3/2 comma 4 the exact same way that I write it when they're solutions. Because the zeros are just the x part of a coordinate. They're just the x value. Unless it's not an x. If it's an m or something, an m instead. That's how I usually write them. Okay, so we have 2 more, and I'm going to have you do those from scratch. They're all they're all solve it by factoring, but these say find the zeros. So you get to put the zeros in first. Okay, I'm going to walk around, and then that's all of our notes for today. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this video off. And if somebody needed the answers for these and is watching the video on their own, you know what? I'll do it up here, but you guys won't see it because of the I'll freeze it. That way it's still on the video if somebody needs to watch it, and then I'll come around and see what you got. Okay?